The draft is over. What did the Charlotte Hornets do? Not only making a couple of picks, but also they get involved in the trade market. We'll recap it all today with David Walker, plus this.
People say I have like freakishly long arms for my height.
Have you ever measured your wingspan before?
You are Locked On Hornets, your daily Charlotte Hornets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
In a minute, cuz we live.
It's Locked On Hornets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Thanks for making us your first listen. We're free and available anywhere you get your podcast, and that includes YouTube. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. There's David Walker. Find him on Twitter at David B. Walker, helping us out during the live draft show just yesterday as we saw Tijan Salon as that 6th overall selection. There's Doug Branson helping us all out here as he did not only the live draft show, not only today's show, but also on his Substack, everyhornetsboxscore.com. Has you covered there as well. Listen to me, Walker Mail, WFNZ, every weekday from 12 to 3 p.m. We have a draft, folks. We're done. Tijan Salon at 6. Got to see the second round today. Very weird coverage. Maybe we get to that a little bit later on.
I'll say from a very nice Ramada Inn. I mean,
it was beautiful.
Well appointed.
I mean, you could almost smell the breakfast buffet in the back. You know what I mean? It was nice.
Wish the room was a little bigger, honestly, but still a nice room for what it was. The room that they hosted, the second round of the NBA draft. Goodness
Some
gracious.
guys went. Some guys showed up.
There were, yeah. I like the idea that they punish you more if you don't get drafted in the first, because then you have to deal with all of that in the second round. I actually think that's a good punishment for falling all the way at least to the 30s. Let's go with the Charlotte Hornets. First, they select somebody at 42nd overall, KJ Simpson, point guard out of Colorado. The main takeaway that I see on Hornets Twitter is that everybody is excited that we found our Summer League point guard of the future. I hope as long as he can hold that job down for the next 4 years, it will have been a hit of a draft pick. I don't care if he plays one single second on the active roster. If he can play Summer League and be good enough there, I think we'll all be happy. The stats, 19.7 points per game, shot 49.7% on twos, 43.4% from three-point range on 5 attempts per game. That's nice. Got to the foul line a decent amount as well, 5 attempts per game, 87.6% from the charity stripe, almost 6 rebounds per game too, so a good rebounding point guard, almost 5 assists per contest, 1.5 steals per game also. Box score was phenomenal for KJ Simpson this past season, his junior year at Colorado. Had some NBA talent that he was playing with as well. But KJ, the more productive college basketball player of the other two guys that got drafted in the first round, Cody Williams, Tristan Da Silva. David, we'll go with you first. What do you think about the pick here in KJ Simpson? Not only being the Summer League point guard, but yeah, maybe he can help us on the active roster too.
Yeah, maybe so. I mean, I'll tell you what, immediately I was glad he was in the building because he may have given the interview of the second half. He was very emotional, as were his parents, as they should be. But, I mean, what rang true to me was just very much in line with what this front office has done in the draft so far, in that you got guys – he said it himself. He said, I'm ready to run through a wall for those folks in Charlotte. I'm not done here. The work is not over. So, like, he did not work out for the Hornets, but they did have an interview at some point around the combine or something, and apparently that must have gone incredible because, as you said, the stats are there. Gavoni said he thought he was the best player in the conference, and he was first-team all-conference. Can fill it up, a little shorter than you would like. But, look, if he's just the Summer League point guard to set up, the first-round draft pick and whomever else is there out in Vegas and work with Charles Lee. I mean, I think that's a big thing for these rookies to get in there and work with Charles Lee before anybody else does, really. I loved it. I loved his passion. I loved his enthusiasm. And he can play, man. So they had to get somebody to set people up in Vegas, and he's going to have a shot. He's going to have a chance to, make some impact.
Doug, are you okay drafting a shorty if it means it's a pick in the second round?
Someone texted me and said Doug's no shorties rule was violated.
Oh, I know. But if they were going to draft a guard, it's almost like they had no choice because, Jamal Shed went just a few picks later. So, yeah, I mean, I was in favor of them looking at maybe another longer wing. But, yeah, I mean, look, he impressed me with the quotes, and then the shot is pure. The offense looks great. They seem to be high on his defense as well. And, the fact is the Hornets have had major success in their history with tiny guards. I mean, Kemba, they always lied about his height, but I think I was his height, and I'm 5'11". Yeah. And maybe a little bit taller. So, and then of course Muggsy. So it's not like they haven't had success with those types of guys. And he talks like someone that has been doubted because of his size, and is going to try to play his way onto this roster. And so, again, 42nd overall pick, sure, why not? I would say now that the trade that we're going to talk about in a bit that brings back more future assets, that does take a little bit of the sting off the shorty because you are coming away with future assets that you can use, to add positional size down the line. So, I'm not as concerned with it, honestly.
Yeah, and he's actually, just so people know, he's actually like he's pretty short, even for Reed Shepherd standards, Devin Carter standards. Like, he's 6 foot and a quarter without shoes. His wingspan helps. Wingspan helps offset it, and Vicini says it's 6'4.5". So I mean, that's decent enough. But yeah, if there's anybody to violate that with a little bit of oomph, Doug's rule of no shorties, it's definitely KJ Simpson here. But yeah, offensively very gifted, and again, summer league, but also I like the fact that he plays with up-tempo, fast-paced guy. So if LaMelo goes out and you have this guy as some type of foundation player for the future, you just give him a shot, then enter KJ Simpson, and at least you still keep the pace. Something Charles Lee talked about with LaMelo. You have that here with KJ Simpson, too, if he does see the floor. Doug, you had something else to say about KJ?
And everything that I read on both Salon and KJ Simpson, high character guys, good support systems, and after so many years of drafting guys, either at the time knowing that might not be the case or getting some hints that might be the case, or several years later having to deal with maturity issues or character issues with some of these guys, if all of that holds, if what I'm reading is true, then it will be a nice change of pace for the Hornets to bring in some young players that are sort of ready to lead themselves and maybe lead others and, drive this team's just culture. I mean, maybe it's a culture of motor. I don't know. Whatever it's a culture of, they're starting to build it. And you have to respect that. However these players pan out, you have to respect that they went in here with an agenda, and that agenda was, all right, let's bring in some guys that can, reset what we've got going on here, at least in terms of attitude.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, you don't flip it overnight, unless you get some generational LeBron James type player, Wembanyama type thing. So for them to go into this draft and get two guys that kind of fit that bill, they're starting to lay the groundwork for that. And it sure seems like something they may try and sell. I mean, look, they've said it in their post-draft, press conferences, right? Peterson has said as much. They're looking for guys that are high character, that want to work every day, every play. So that's something they're already putting out there. They're trying to kind of change the narrative around this team.
Another thing they're prioritizing with a couple of these picks that you note, it's athleticism with both of them. KJ Simpson tested very well at the combine, lane agility score very good, 40-inch vertical as well. So the fact that you have athleticism here with your second round pick, smaller body, but still have the athleticism. Same thing with Tajon Salon. That's somebody that we know absolutely possesses that with the body to boot. That's how you go 6th overall, even if it was a surprise to a lot of people. So they're prioritizing athleticism, but also they're not lacking for attitude, they're not lacking for motor, and not lacking for culture, which is what you want to build with a brand new regime, trying to get rid of all of the losing that has persisted for so long now. These are the types of guys that care a lot, and as we've talked about before, having guys that care, it's a big deal while trying to shift all of the bad things that have gone on with this franchise.
And I want to see this extend all the way into the summer league roster and the training camp roster, is bringing in these types of guys, not just because, they're from Hickory or from the Charlotte area, or they went to UNC, or all of the varied reasons that guys would make these types of rosters for the Charlotte Hornets. I'm hoping that with this new ownership group and a new front office that they're going to search far and wide for a particular type of player with a particular type of attitude that can come in and not look. A lot of these guys are not going to make the team, but they can push everybody and reinforce the messages that Charles Lee is going to have, and that this entire organization is trying to instill. So I'm excited. I mean, look, again, a lot of questions about Tijan Salon, and I think a lot of those questions are fair. But I'm excited by the idea that they are bringing in these guys that obviously want to be great. Will they turn out to be great? TBD. But these guys they've got the want to, they've got it in droves, and that's getting me excited. I'm titillated.
Yeah, here we go.
Yeah, well, I'll say this. His post game or his post draft interview, it caught the attention of the panel on the ESPN show, which was not easy to do today, guys. I mean, Bronny James was in the air. Gavoni had a lot of stories he loved. But, when you show that type of passion and you show that kind of grit, I mean, Stephen A., a step in the right direction. Hello. I mean, that's more coverage than the Hornets got in some of the post-first round, exercises and breakdowns today across the internet.
Right.
So,
Malika Andrews liked it so much or thought it was so good. She used KJ Simpson in that post-draft interview to try to change the narrative on how terrible the coverage was going through the first 12 picks of the second round. Everybody on Twitter, as soon as they saw Stephen A. Smith's face, Woj's face, and they heard the first time Bronny, everybody immediately went to Twitter to say, oh my God, they're going to make us sit through 30 picks of the Bronny Fest with those two guys at the desk. And KJ Simpson goes up there, has the emotional interview. Everybody loves it. Malika says, see, look, I know it's kind of weird, second night, but that's what it's all about, guys. Right there, that's what it's all about. Malika, company person, no doubt about it. Nice job. Coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast.
Don't go to sleep on the Hornets just yet.
The Hornets only drafted 2 players, but today they actually added 2 people at the point guard position. Who is it? How do they do it? Find out coming up next. This episode is brought to you by Gametime. Gametime? Gametime is an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets faster and easier, and prices on the Gametime app actually go down the closer it gets to first pitch. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee, Gametime takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets. Plus, I've told you about the deals before, priority last-minute deals. You can save up to 60% off buying last minute for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. Flash deals allow you to save even more with exclusive in-app deals on select seats ahead of the game or the event. And then zone deals. Save even more money when you choose a section and let Gametime choose the seat for you. All-in pricing, seat views, lowest price guarantee, Gametime ticket coverage, all benefits here with Gametime. Take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONNBA. LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. More Locked On Hornets ahead. I had to squint my eyes today after I saw what I thought I had already seen in 2023, like a year and a half ago, when Woj reported that Reggie Jackson was being traded to the Charlotte Hornets alongside 3 second-round picks from Denver to Charlotte. It's like, wait, this happened before, right? And yes, it did. In the Mason Plumlee trade, going from Charlotte to the LA Clippers, Reggie Jackson came to Charlotte in return, and then, yes, was waived, released for I think after he was on the roster for 2.5 days. So now he is back. You can only hope to escape the Charlotte Hornets franchise. You can run, but you cannot hide. He's back. The Nuggets trade him again. Reggie Jackson, 3 unprotected second-round picks, by the way. This is because Denver is trying to get off of some money. KCP expected to make a lot of Skrilla in the offseason, and now that we know the CBA is weird with the first and second apron, Denver's up against a tax. They're a contending team. They're trying to save enough money to go keep a lot of their core in place with Kentavious Caldwell-Pope set to make a lot of money. Reggie Jackson was the cap casualty. The Hornets say, okay, that's fine. We're not going to contend. Give us 3 second-round picks, and we will allow you to dump that salary. Just another thing here in Jeff Peterson actually, carrying the torch for Mitch Kupchak and his love for second-round picks.
Yes.
That is still very much a part of the organization. The ghosts are still there. I just don't know if they're Casper-friendly ghost. Like, that's what it feels like now. But it doesn't seem like they're haunting Spectrum Center, Capitol Grill, wherever they are these days. So I'm here for it. This is like smart process move here to me. Doug, what did you think about the Reggie Jackson trade?
Well, I would say maybe it's a step further than carrying the torch. Jeff Peterson was very quick to take credit for the Tajon Salon scouting. He said the owners didn't know very much about Salon, and he sort of presented them and took a trip and went and saw him and then came back and said, we need to make this guy a priority. But you'll never convince me that this particular deal for the 3 second-round picks was not a complete production by Mitch Kupchak for two reasons.
Baby.
One, I think Mitch probably forgot that he'd already traded for Reggie Jackson once before.
Come on,
and then
that's a low blow.
And then,
come on, he's right there in the building. Come on.
And then, but the second round picks, right? I mean, he loves them. I think this was a case of like Mitch Kupchak saying, "Listen, let me do this, and then I'll leave you alone for the rest of the year, okay?" That's what I think happened.
So Woj's original tweet that sent out that he later edited, it said, "We were sending 3 second-round picks." So I thought, like, this is just a kick in the face to Mitch. He's taking those second-round picks, and he's just throwing them out the window. He's driving down the street and just throwing them out the window and taking Reggie Jackson back. But yeah, I mean, for Denver, it's just, a salary dump. It's what, $5.25 million for like expiring. So I mean, it's nothing.
Well, this happened.
But I mean, I guess it does help them.
Yeah, this happened with Portland. That Portland Denny Avdia to Portland deal for Malcolm Brogdon. There are going to be. We're not done with these kind of deals. There are going to be, I think, multiple opportunities for the Hornets to do this again, get involved with another team after there's some more roster shuffling that happens. Another team that might want to look to, just get under one of these aprons, and an opportunity for them to take back salary and add additional assets. So that's what's going to be interesting to monitor with all of this is, they obviously are in asset acquisition mode, but how serious are they about that? How serious are they about maybe getting bad for next year's draft? All of that's still up in the air, particularly with this Miles Bridges situation and free agency.
Yeah.
I don't think they're going to look to, other than Miles, like, I don't expect them to go and add, Dorian Finney-Smith or Cam Johnson or look for those kind of opportunities. I think they will look to add maybe some young, cheap players who, again, fit that sort of like underdog work mentality, play on both ends, committed to the defensive end of the floor. If they find those opportunities and they're cheap, I think the Hornets will take them, but I don't see them, bringing back a $20 million guy unless it's Miles Bridges.
Yeah. I mean, do you think Reggie, gives them anything in the locker room? I mean, he's certainly long in the tooth. He's got a couple of good games in him every now and then. Can still obviously play. It would be a veteran presence. I don't know how much they're thinking about. That angle of it.
It's funny. I used to pray for times like this.
Yeah.
We have Vasa Micic. We have Trey Mann. They just drafted KJ Simpson in the second round. They technically have Reggie Jackson. And they have, of course, the one and only LaMelo Ball. Yeah. Do we have too many point guards? Yeah. Is that an actual thing with this team? No, I don't think Reggie Jackson is a safe bet to be on the roster. I saw Keith Smith tweet this out as well. It's going to be hilarious when the same exact thing happens to Reggie as when
4 picks. Honestly, like, hang his jersey in the rafters. I mean, 4 picks this guy has delivered to us and never caused any trouble. You know, he just gets traded here and goes out.
I did want to say one thing. You did mention Cam Johnson. This kind of maybe it sneaked by a couple of people today, given all the hoopla with what happened last night and with the second round set to start later on. But Matt Moore, Hardwood Paroxysm, Action Network, he wrote this, quote, after the trade of Mikal Bridges, teams started talking to Brooklyn about potential trades for Cam Johnson. The list is expected to grow, but the Pacers, the Kings, the Hornets too, they are among the teams to be first in line. So the Hornets being first in line, we talked about this when we thought, okay, if you can't get Mikal Bridges, then Cam Johnson would also fit this team very well, another seamless fit that isn't going to cost near as much now, right? Like, we knew it wasn't going to cost as much to get Cam and compared to Mikal even before this New York Knicks trade. Now it's like, okay, everything is crazy. Maybe you have to get rid of a couple of first-round picks to go land Cam, but he would, again, be extremely easy to fit in, really with any puzzle. I think you can morph Cam Johnson as a puzzle piece to fit with whatever team. That includes the Hornets. It felt more realistic if they hadn't made that pick at number 6. Now that they have, like, maybe this isn't going to happen anymore. But, I mean, again, this thing drops after Salon was already selected. So who knows? Maybe they are trying to go after Cam. It's hard to make sense. And I know I'm rambling, but, like, the Miles Bridges piece comes in. But then it's, if Brooklyn is selling for all these assets, how driven are they to take Miles Bridges on a new contract? Like, I'm not sure it makes much sense unless you're talking about giving up real assets like first-round picks, and I don't want to do that.
No, you're totally right though. I think missing out on Stephon Castle, we're going to look back at that as sort of a what if moment, a fulcrum point that took this or an organization that may have been more inclined to try to make a run at this thing into an organization that took a step back and said, all right, we're going to take some risks here. We're going to keep on our line of asset acquisition that we started at the trade deadline and keep moving forward. I think, I think missing out on Castle or Shepard changed a lot of things.
What do you think, David?
Yeah, I mean, the Miles Bridges thing is just what's hanging over this team right now, and we can talk about that a little bit more. But, I mean, it just feels like that's going to dictate a lot. But I agree with you. The addition of Salon is different, right, than either one of those other two guys, because even though we hope he'll make some sort of impact, it's still the long term. You're still playing the long game with him as far as like impact to this team and them, going up into a new dimension. So. It would be tough to see them going down that road now of saying like, all right, we're going to strike now while the iron's hot. If
you made me guess which point guards survive, I think LaMelo's a safe bet. I think Trey Mann is still on the team. I think Micic is gone. I think there's room for Simpson for sure between Greensboro and here, injuries being what they are. Jackson's gone. Like, they're gonna waive him and thank him for another 3 picks.
Yeah, the Micic thing too, because Micic was good last year. So it's a nice problem to have. It's a problem we haven't had before.
No, the fact that he was good and that his contract is nice, right. And that there's some room for him to get better is going to mean that the assets that come back. But, I think, and the reason I bet on Trey Mann to stay over Micic is because I think Mann is more committed to the defensive end of the floor, and that's just going to play to what Charles Lee. Because I'm telling you, they've got to reevaluate this roster top down. There's obviously guys that are safe, Mark, LaMelo, Brandon, but they've got to, really find out like who's with it, who's down with Charles Lee and what he wants to do, and who's not.
Trey Mann was there too in support of Charles Lee. I don't know where Micic is. Maybe he's overseas. I have no clue. But Trey Mann was there.
Don't ask him about the Hornets because he will not tell you.
He won't even say the Hornets. He doesn't even believe that the insect exists.
All right, let's go. One more segment to go. Coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast.
Don't go to sleep on the Hornets just yet.
Let's talk Miles Bridges. Jeff Peterson had an answer to a Miles Bridges question after the draft was over. And plus, we have, I guess, kind of a report on Miles. I don't know. We'll talk about if it's just a good old-fashioned tweet or if it's a report. Coming up next, Locked On Hornets. This episode is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience, the formula for winning championships, is also what keeps your ride or die alive. By the way, Charlotte Hornets, oh man, eBay Motors should be a great sponsor. Everybody has a motor that the Hornets draft, and eBay Motors is also a great place where maybe they could look for their next prospect. They have everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance: superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or you get your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. More Locked On Hornets ahead. Doug, you had another comment on KJ Simpson before we moved on further into the start of free agency. What you got?
Not just because of his size. His game does remind me of Fred VanVleet. Like, he gives me VanVleet vibes. So I wanted to say that. And the other thing I want to say, and I mean this as a compliment, and I'm worried that this is going to sound disparaging or mean, and it's not.
Watch out, KJ.
But when I look at pictures of him, and maybe it's I only see him in these like Colorado black jerseys against these like crowds, and there's maybe a little bit of an optical illusion goes on. But his wingspan is so long for his body. It looks like I'm playing around on like the 2K player creator, and I'm like morphing it in strange ways. Like, his body looks strange, but that's a compliment because, you know, that wingspan is definitely going to allow him to play bigger than, 6 feet would indicate.
Yeah, I mean, 6'4" is what it's listed at. I think 6'4.5". So it's funny because it's actually not that long, but for a 6-footer, then yeah, it is
relative. Yeah, it's all it's all percentages, it's all relative. Right. That's what I'm saying. It looks right. Odd. Yeah. People say I have like freakishly long arms for my height.
Have you ever measured your wingspan before?
I haven't. I should. Yeah. I will. In fact,
next
I'm going
to save it for a draft talk next year.
I'm going to report back. I'll do a shuttle drill. I'll measure my wingspan, and then I'll probably vomit after the shuttle drill.
Yeah, I feel you on that. By the way, you're looking at a 6'9" wingspan right here, baby. 6'9".
Nice.
Oh, that's what we're talking
nice.
about. Wow. Not to brag. Draft me, Hornets. Draft me, cowards. Let's move on. Miles Bridges. It's the first domino that has to fall in free agency. We've seen when Mitch Kupchak was the general manager, it would be a long time before they would make a move. And then eventually you were going into like tier 4. Lauri Markkanen was like the best available free agent. Got better, of course, but he was the best available free agent for a time. And then, nope, not going to sign him despite some links there. Josh Hart, nope, not going after him. They'll go after Kelly Oubre. Like that's what they would do. They would wait for a very long time. Can't do that with Miles out here. If you wait too long and you can't get anything done with Miles, or another team doesn't get anything done, then you're just, sitting on your hands while all these other guys get signed to teams because you don't have money to work with, and you don't know how much money you have until the Miles decision is made. Jeff Peterson answered that question. He said, I've made it very clear. This is what he said to Miles. Quote, I've made it very clear to Miles that we want him to remain a Hornet. We also have a tweet from Evan Sidery that I'm going to pull up real quickly, and I'm not sure exactly if this is a report. Not sure if it's just a good old-fashioned tweet on the Charlotte Hornets, but this is what he writes. The Hornets and Miles Bridges have mutual interest on signing a new long-term deal. Charlotte has prioritized Bridges re-signing as their top priority in free agency. Charlotte's future starting lineup: LaMelo Ball, Brandon Miller, Miles Bridges, Tijan Salon, and Mark Williams. Okay. Let's start with Jeff Peterson, and then let's go to Sidery. Or Doug, just take me away. You start wherever you want. Where do you want to go?
Okay, go ahead and just read me the quote again from Peterson.
Yep. From Peterson. Gotcha.
Peterson.
From Peterson, I'd have to go back real quickly, but he says we've made it clear to Miles, made it very clear to Miles that we want him to remain a Hornet.
Okay, that means nothing, right? I mean, because for Miles Bridges, this is about money. You can say, hey, I would love you to remain a Hornet, and then Miles would say, how much money is, what does that mean? And they say, well, $20 million a year. And then Miles says, no, thank you. I would not like to be a Hornet at $20 million a year. So that means nothing. And then go ahead and give me the tweet again.
Oh, yeah, this is my favorite. You're having me bounce around all over the place. I don't know if I can bring it to you fast enough.
Scrolling.
Yeah, we're doing it. We're scrolling. Give me a little time. The Hornets and Miles Bridges have mutual interest on signing a new long-term deal. Charlotte has prioritized Bridges re-signing as their top priority.
Great. Okay, stop right there. So they have mutual interest. Of course, we've heard Miles before say, I want to be in Charlotte. Charlotte has said, we want Miles to be part of the future. It means absolutely bubkiss unless both of those parties are in mutual agreement on what the dollar amount is. And then on the other point, like if the Hornets have very little in terms of priorities in free agency or in the offseason in general, because hey, they got some players at the trade deadline, their roster's pretty full, they'd have to shake some things up, and they don't even know if they want to be good anyway, then yeah, I guess the only guy that they would have an advantage in signing would be the guy that would be the top priority. So none of that means anything. I still think that the fundamentals of this haven't changed. The Hornets don't want to give Miles Bridges what Miles Bridges thinks he deserves, and this is all going to come down to the market deciding, Detroit, Indiana, San Antonio, throw in some other teams, maybe Houston, if they want to go and give him $28 million a year. And if they do, I think the Hornets are going to say, okay, good luck.
What do you think, David?
Yeah, no, that's always been the case. I mean, look, he's been their priority for this would be the third offseason. So it's clear that he's a priority, right? I mean, when all this stuff started, they were on the verge of giving him a big contract. Last year, they tried to work something out. They got him a smaller contract, and now we're here again. It's 3 years later. So that's always been the case. I do think it's good to hear the new front office say as much. I mean, if you are a fan of the Hornets bringing back Miles, that may give you a little solace in that fact. But it's going to come down to, can they convince him? Or how hard do they want to convince him? Because it feels like the way the market is going, it feels like there will be an offer out there that the Hornets may not be willing to match. So I don't know. Do they play that out with the years? Do they sell him on being here and what they've done for him thus far? I don't know.
I think the issue with giving him like a huge contract for 4 years is that, you've locked up all this money with Melo. The ankles are a question mark. In a couple of years, you're going to have to give Brandon Miller a lot of money. So, I just think that it's a lot to invest. I think if you're going to do that, if you're going to give him north of $25 million a year, you really need to be sure that all of this works. And I just don't know that this front office or even the previous front office had enough to really look at and decide, oh, wow, this is going to work. Now, I will say that drafting Salon helps a little bit because that is such a long-term project. That, even when you get to the point at which you've got to re-sign him, I'm not sure that it's going to have to be like a mega deal or anything like that. So, that he'll command a lot of restricted free agency.
Yeah, and so Walker, I heard you ask this question on your show today. How much of an impact does that draft pick have on Miles Bridges? And I know that's kind of been the question in the air since they took Salon to play the 4, maybe the 3-ish, whatever. But I just don't think it's a direct correlation. Like, I don't necessarily mean it means Miles is gone for sure. I think he's still going to be a priority for them. I think it gives them, like you said, Doug, maybe a little more flexibility. But, I think Miles was always going to be a decision unto himself.
I just think, look, I think they're going to Miles Bridges and saying, look, man, if you want to sign on this team-friendly deal, we'd love to have you back. And we'll go and try to make a run at this thing. But also we have all of these other plans to get better and all of these other avenues to explore. So if some team comes along and wants to whiskey away for $28 million, then good luck. And honestly, I hope that's how they're thinking, because that would actually make sense to bring him back. And honestly, I can't imagine that they're thinking any other way, because if he were to command that, then he'd already be a Hornet. They would have already signed him.
Well, that's what I was going to say. So how much does this mean that we haven't heard anything yet? And if we don't hear anything by, July 1 midnight or whatever?
I don't think it means much right now. I mean, I think right now they're having a narrative tug of war, especially with the latest stuff from Evan Sidery and Rod Boone. And we asked the question, media, as in we, right? Rod Boone, I think, is the one that had it in the Charlotte Observer talking about this. I heard Woj talking about it on draft coverage today.
Yeah.
And he was saying that the Hornets do want to bring back Miles Bridges. He said they're a different team without Miles, but that Miles is going to get play in free agency. He said there are other teams that are looking at Miles, and they're going to be very interested. So if that's the case, Philadelphia is the team that I would keep an eye on. And then maybe you could also look at Detroit. Those would be the two squads. So, yeah, I don't know for sure that those are going to be the teams, but with Woj saying it, with there not being anything definitive, like with Sidery, is he going to say, according to sources? This is where that stuff gets messy, by the way. Like, just give me something more. This was after Jeff Peterson made that comment, by the way. So it's like, okay, what? Sure. Are we just saying statements? Yeah. Like, I don't think we learned all that much at all about Miles. The other thing I'll say is, like, when people talk about Miles at the right price, that doesn't mean anything. And it makes me go to the NFL example when Brandon Ayuk said the San Francisco 49ers don't want me. Adam Schefter, the NFL's Woj, if you don't know, rolls in and says, that's not true. They just want him at the right price. Well, okay. Right. Yeah, I would love to have Miles Bridges at $15 million as a basketball player. Would love that. That would be great. So I want him. Miles doesn't want me then. How about run with that? Miles doesn't want to come back to Charlotte. I'm trying to pay him $15 million. It's all so stupid. Can you agree on a price point? No? Then Miles is going to play elsewhere if somebody else is going to give him more money. If you can, great. Then you guys both want each other at the same level. This is how it's all going to play out.
Yeah, well, too, I mean, it could be, a contract structuring situation. What would be more beneficial to the Hornets, front-loading that contract or back-loading that contract? That's all going to depend on what the Hornets, feel like they want to do over the next couple of years. And so it's not just about the total dollar amount. But look, I think if you're Miles Bridges, you're looking at the Anunoby deal, you're looking at a lot of other deals that have happened, and you're salivating. You're thinking there's an opportunity here for a team to come in and sweep me off my feet and give me a boatload of cash. And that's very fair. And I think it's fair for the Hornets and good for the Hornets to let the market talk. They did it with PJ. I thought it was smart when they did it with PJ Washington. They said, PJ, go and test the market. Go to Dallas and go to all these places and see what the deal is. And the deal was, everybody was like, no, we're not comfortable with that price.
And I'll say they were saving money for this offseason, which now the Hornets, it's gonna be funny because in a way they might benefit from both. All those teams in a weird offseason didn't want to spend money. This offseason, they do want to spend money. So OG Anunoby gets a monster deal. Paul George, weird, don't know what's going to happen with him and the Clippers, but there has been plenty of reports that actually the Philly Paul George stuff, that's soured. Well, then who do you turn to?
Well, that's the thing.
Looks
that's
like
the
it
thing.
might
And
be
ironically, the OG Anunoby might end up hurting the Hornets more so because now Philly has to do something, right? They're going to have to turn somewhere.
Well, it depends on what you mean by hurt the Hornets, right? Like, if
sorry. If the Hornets' goal, right? Yeah, if the Hornets' goal is to bring back Miles. Then if they're going up head to head against Philly, Philly could be aggressive because what other choice do they have after Paul George? It looks like that doesn't work out, but just being basically the market is setting this to be kind of crazy.
Yeah. And by the way, I don't doubt any of that being true. Like, I bet the Hornets do want Miles, and I bet they want to pay him at like, 25 is the example we go with, something around that. I don't think much more. Like 25 is still a good bit. I bet they do want him. I bet Miles does want to come back.
Yeah.
I think that's actually what's keeping, Miles in the race to be here, especially with the friendship with LaMelo, Steve Clifford. If he has any influence in that organization, he likes Salon. They drafted him. We know how highly he spoke about Miles all year long. He was healthy for them last season. So, yeah, there are plenty of reasons as to why you would want him to stay here. But it looks like a couple of teams could spend a lot of money to pry him away. And if you're Miles, after losing a lot of money, lots and lots. Like, it's, lost a lot of money. Are you going to try to recoup as much as you can? So it would make
He
sense.
lost he lost an entire season. I hate to say he lost 2 because he did get paid last season, but it was nowhere near what he was going to get paid, right? So that's the other piece. They're going to be looking to recoup maybe the last big contract he might get. And the other piece of that is you have to think how long this has been in the mind of just even the new people running the Hornets, right? This was a known for 2 years.
Yeah.
This has been a known since before they got here. This was probably a known in interviews and, you know, in lead up to hiring. So like, seems like the big move. It's going to be fascinating. I mean, even Woj was like, that's going to be a big piece. It's a very different team without Miles Bridges.
For sure.
It's a rebuilding team. It's a rebuilding team.
If that's the case, yeah, and we'll see how they rebuild. That'll do it for Locked On Hornets. Thanks for making us your first listen, a completed draft. We'll talk a little more about it as we assess the value, assess the opinions of everybody else on Monday. We appreciate David joining us once again. Been helping us out a lot this week. David
Absolutely.
B. Walker on Twitter. Make sure you follow him. Doug Branson. Make sure you follow his Substack, everyhornetsboxscore.com. And listen to me on the radio, Sports Radio 92.7 WFNZ, Wes and Walker, every weekday from 12 to 3 p.m. Subscribe on YouTube as well. Doing a lot of good stuff there. We appreciate the time. Talk to you on Monday.